You're tuned in to the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Dewell. Welcome. Every conversation that I host here is to spark an idea, to get down to the right business right now without losing track of your long-term business strategy. Join me on my pursuit to identify the right work to be done, how to do as much of that right work as possible, and to navigate your toughest business decisions. My goal is to bring you high-quality knowledge, experience, and tools that allow you, enable you, and empower you to make bold decisions as an entrepreneur and a business owner. Don't forget, subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss a program. Share your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas in the comments below. We thrive on your feedback and engagement. There are 3 things I'm going to start with as we get into this program. The first is time and energy is an equation, and that pausing to assess how that time and energy is being used allows not only exploration, but the right next step to occur. And you really have to be willing to give up the good to get to the great. And all of this comes down to the skills that are necessary to not only be committed to your goals, but to commit to yourself to become the person, the leader, into the role or roles that you have to get things going and keep moving forward. And that's what Bolanle Williams-Olley and I talk about in this Bold Business Podcast. Bolanle Williams-Olley is the CFO and co-owner of Mancini Duffy, a national design firm. Very historic, very tech-forward, based in New York City. And not only is she doing the CFO part of the work, she has wrapped into the operational performance as well. In her role as dynamic leader, she builds Waves, a collective of women making waves in the industry that she is in. By engaging each other and striving for more, she builds Live, her nonprofit focused on addressing the needs of children and improving the quality of education in low-income schools and communities in Nigeria. And she builds Money, a company to help small design firms with financial solutions that empower the firms to become successful and, more importantly, to thrive financially and as a group providing an important service to their communities. She's also the author of a best-selling book, Build Boldly. Chart your unique career path and lead with courage, which is what we're talking about here at the Bold Business Podcast.
You have to pause. So if you do that, I think it puts you in a better position to just be ruthless about what is working for you and what isn't.
Wow! You are listening to the Bold Business Podcast, where you will hear firsthand experiences about what it really takes to ensure market relevance and your company's future.
Let's start the conversation with this. What makes it important to be committed to yourself?
If you cannot be committed to yourself, how do you then commit to others? How do you move in life? How do you hold yourself to your word when no one is watching? Being committed to you helps you stay true to you. It helps you find yourself some more. It helps you know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. I will give an example of how I am committed to myself. How about that? At the start of April, I said I was going to work out for the next 12 weeks. And I would wake up every morning, 4 days a week, and show up for myself. And we are now in, the 3rd week of April, and I have been doing that. That is a sign of commitment to myself. My husband isn't awake. My kids are not awake. Nobody else is here, and I get myself up and I go down to that gym, no matter what, right? I feel like when you're committed to yourself in that kind of way, it spills through in all areas of your life, be it personally, be it professionally, be it how you show up. It's a muscle that you build. It is something that is special for you. If you've not been committing to yourself, if you've not been staying true to what you say you want to do, start today.
Start today. And I actually think that's the basis of our whole program, because there might be some unlearning we've got to do. We have relationships that we're in already that could benefit from an upgrade anywhere in our life. we have definitely our relationship with ourselves, but our willingness to change our relationship with the outside world to really help us on the inside. And it does seem it's very monumental to do. And I know I'm one of those. I was actually raised to be seen and not heard in this world and in this time. And so when you are raised to speak when spoken to have your own voice is a very interesting thing. So I've spent my entire adult life working on claiming that voice. And I will tell you, I still have to recommit to myself on some regular basis around that. And the fact I can point back to it and say, that's just the way it is. That's the way it was. Cool. Right? I have no judgment about it. It is what it is. It was what it was. So how can I use it? And so so then leaning into that, Bolanle, would it be, how hard is it when you first start building the muscle?
Oh, it's hard. It's somewhere where you haven't been. You're not used to what it is. So it feels uncomfortable, which is the main reason why you have to keep going. And for me, I think a lot of the things that I either choose to commit to or do in my life, the moment, even if it's before I start, the moment where I'm like questioning a lot means I absolutely have to go there. It means that there's some growth that is waiting in that experience, that situation, be it whether it's at work, whether it's personally, whatever it is, it means that there's some growth that needs to happen in that space. And so I just want to quickly say something that you said that was really powerful. That act of having, it's nonstop, right? It's a continuous commitment. It's not like you commit once and then you're all good. And so when you're building that muscle at the beginning, it might feel very weird to you, but you have to push through. Now, when you push through, you will feel good, but it means you've learned what you need to learn at that beginning stage. Then there's the next stage that comes with its own set of trials. And you're like, wait, haven't I done this lesson already? Don't I know how to speak up in a meeting? Don't I know how to stand on my own ground? I'm a leader now. All these things aren't just coming naturally. No, there's always that recommitment that you have to do. The beginning might feel very scary, but really and truly, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust what the person that you're going to become once you go through that process. And you have to believe, really and truly believe that you will be better for it. I always say it's two things, right? Let's say you commit to, I don't know. I like to use fitness. Maybe that's like this, I'm going to run. If you commit to it and you start running. So I just did a 10K.
Congratulations. That's a big effort.
Yes, coming from someone who used to do half marathons. I took a break and then I said I was going to do this. And I committed to it. However, it let me know that I don't really enjoy running as much as I used to in the past. I enjoy my other forms of cardio, be it jump rope or cycling or whatever it is I'm doing now.
Yes.
Going through that process, again, can also help you see things that are not serving you. How would you know that this thing isn't serving you or working out for you or isn't for you if you actually don't go through the process? So commitment to me helps you, again, navigate through life, helps you see where your strengths are, helps you see what you shouldn't be focusing on, helps you see the areas where maybe you might need additional help, resource, whatever it is to help you get through things.
There's 3 levels of awareness that I talk about, and you've articulated at least 2 of them, and there might have been a third one in there. So just reflecting back, the first one is we put in the effort to do it because we know there's something to change. Until we take action, we don't actually know if it's the thing that's going to change. We just know we're going to be better for it. The second one is, I heard you say, not only do I know who I am becoming, I actually like it. And then when things show up and they don't fit, I get to choose. Is this something that I've learned to do differently and it's why I feel uncomfortable now? Or is it that next stage of, cool, I caught it as I'm experiencing it so I can go? And then the third one could be around this, is it still useful in service? But I could be wrong about that. That I have is about you find that moment in the road where you get to choose new or not, right? First one, you're on the ride and you're like, oops, I got on that ride again. The second one is, oh, cool, I know I'm on the ride. Maybe I can do something different while I'm here, right? I'm on a roller coaster. Maybe I keep my eyes open instead of screaming. I don't know. And the third one, there's that choice. Do I get on the ride or do I not?
Yes.
Wait, did I hit all three of those?
It were all three.
Okay, because I thought
I'll be telling more stories, and I love your summarization. It's so good. I'm going to get this out of the storytelling.
And it's so funny. You're like, I used to do half marathons, and now I'm doing 10Ks. And I'm like, I will walk a 10K. And I get really excited to do that. Okay, so let's talk about being of service. Sometimes, and I'm going to speak in a general place, there's going to be a resistance to recognizing this. It's no longer serving me. And that could come across that could come out as selfish. That could come out as ego. That could come out as just self-love. There's so many different things. So how do you know? How do you know when something's not truly serving you anymore versus something you think needs to be happening around it for whatever emotion or viewpoint you might have?
Yes, for me and for some of the folks in my network, right? Like you can have your own perspective, but then you have to zoom out and see, other people experiencing it. Listen, I have lack of peace internally and externally in the environment, right? If something isn't serving me anymore, right? There's a lot of confusion around it. Typically, again, if something is if you're doing something for the first time or something new and you have that lack of peace, at some moments, you're going to have clarity. Like you're going to go, oh, okay, I should keep going that path. But if it's truly not serving you anymore, you will have, it is almost nonstop, right? There's no break. There is no, that internal tussle, the confusion you're feeling. And then you also have to look around your environment, right? If it is something that you're doing with people, how are you relating to people? How are you showing up, whether it's office, workplace, in your family, whatever it is, how are you showing up? And is it constant negativity? Is it always like tough all the time? I think if you're experiencing that at length, at nauseam, where you're not having moments of breaks, where there's a clarity, where you're like, okay, this is why I had to go through all this stress. That is when you actually have to pause and then be very honest with yourself and do that analysis and do that self-awareness. Like, what is happening here? Let me step out of the noise and look at this thing, whether it's a job, whether it's, I don't know, running a 10K, whatever it is, whether it's eating poorly, whatever it is, you have to pause. And in my book, I talk about something called slowing down to speed up. If you have actually not pre-programmed those moments of pausing, it's not going to give you're not going to know that that this thing that you're doing is no longer serving you. So that continues. So for me, how I know is by those pre-programmed moments, instead of just going and listen, it's life, it's reality, right? Like we are always on the go. You have to intentionally put that pause. So some people do it quarterly. Some people have monthly meetings with themselves. Some people, whatever it is, some people do daily, right? There's a daily reflection on what happened today. A month, a quarter might be good because then you have multiple patterns, right? It's not just one instance. You have 3 or more examples where, okay, this thing went really wrong and I really need to assess if it's still working for me or not. So if you do that, I think it puts you in a better position to just be ruthless about what is working for you and what isn't.
I love that word. I am a big proponent, and I talk about saying no ruthlessly. And people are always telling me, Jess, that's so strong. I want to know, Bolanle, why do you use the word useless?
I use it because I think a lot of us are very passive about what's happening in our lives, right? Like things are constantly happening to us. We constantly think we don't have enough time. We constantly are maybe either burnt out or whatever it is. And you almost have to go to the extreme, right? Like I need to ruthlessly do a time analysis and energy. And let me not just talk about time and energy analysis. What is draining the life out of me? And am I in a position at this point, right? Understanding that to even do that is a privilege, right? But in whatever capacity that you're in, am I in a position where I can realign my energy, how it is being poured out, what is sucking my energy and what is giving me life? Life is hard, right? But if you're not looking at if you're not doing an energy analysis, you're always constantly going to be drained, right? That's essentially what I'm trying to say. And so that's just something that's why I use that word ruthless, because if I'm not careful, I'm just going to not be able to serve all the people. I'm not going to be able to show up well as a wife, as a mother, as in the workplace, however I'm showing up, I'm not going to be able to if I don't do a ruthless analysis. That's why I use that word. That's why I like it.
I'm your host, Jess Dewell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Hey, did you know? Of those of us with a plan, 10% just have an idea, 75% have written but don't use their plan, and 15% successfully achieve what is in their plan. Know exactly where you are and what is the necessary work to get where you want to go with a growth mindset reset. This is dedicated time to evaluate exactly where your business is, where you want it to go, and the trajectory you are currently on. Go to reddirection.com solutions to get started.
Many of us, and I will actually go so far to say every one of us, has at least 4 or more roles. We're all a child. Some are parents. Some are mentors. Some are teachers. They're in all these different roles. And that's without saying, this is what I do, or here's where my skills are, or here are the places that I volunteer my time, or I give my time, or I join my time, or I have part of this community. And that it goes on and on. So that's one of the reasons I like ruthless, because then I can be like, cool, how much time do I actually have for all this stuff I've got? And to the point of just because I like it doesn't mean I have the time and energy to do it. Also part of ruthless, when we have to start saying no to the things we actually like.
Yes.
To do the things to take us where we want to go.
Yes.
I'm hearing you.
It's powerful. It really is powerful. I feel like I think a comment or a feedback I always hear is, oh my gosh, you always have a lot going on. But that's because I'm working on things that I really want to work on. I've said no. It's not everybody doesn't have the same capacity in terms of focus or interest. You might not want to do multi, but each thing that we're doing, whether it's one thing, whether it's 10 things, always take your energy, right? And so you have to really think about, okay, if I'm only focused on one thing, what are you being ruthless about so that you can give it your all? If you're doing more than one thing, what are you cutting out, right? What don't you just have time for anymore? So that it's that time and energy, right? So that's where the jam or the magic happens, right? That's where you actually accelerate and grow even faster, move faster.
Endings are always good. If I can be ruthless about pausing something or stopping something or letting something go, it does not mean forever. It means for right now. And especially when I start saying no to things that I care about, when I all out ruthless, I need the time and the energy for this and this. That means I don't have any for this. Instead of letting it drain my energy because it's there, I put it on the shelf and I say, I will come back at such and such a time and we'll see where things are at. Because of this and this have an ending for evaluation and assessment.
A good example I have of that is my nonprofit. So when I first started my nonprofit, I used to crochet. But when I was crocheting, I was a project accountant or a senior project accountant at a firm. I used to commute and I had my train time. I think I probably had my baby, I just had my one child. So I could say, I am going to crochet 30 hats over the next 30 days and actually find pockets of time to doing that, to give back. But as I started progressing, so moving from that senior project accountant role now to a financial controller, at that point in time, right? So there was a shift in my job. And so I had to start thinking of what am I going to give up, right? Time-wise. And how is the nonprofit going to evolve, right? So the nonprofit then evolved from me actually donating. Then the next project or next couple of projects was, can I crochet a small amount and have that raise funds for project? And then the next thing is, can I then just fundraise? I will crochet when I have time. That it made me, I was like, I want to be able to crochet my 30 hats. That is something that I enjoyed, right? I enjoyed doing, actually being able to go deliver this to a NICU or wherever I did over the holidays. Does it mean that the nonprofit isn't still doing important work? No, we were able to, now we're about to be 11 years old. We've raised over almost $100,000 in the 11-year time span, having major impact. So I gave up the good for the great. Oh, yes. I still, maybe a month ago, I crocheted a hat for my friend who just had her baby.
Do you burn the candle at both ends?
Yes, I was.
But not anymore.
And not because I paused, right? One of the ways that I always know if I am burning the ends is sleep. My husband and my kids, my daughter is always saying, Mommy, how can you just get into bed? You could be talking to me at 9:21 and I say something, I come back, it's 9:21.30 and you're asleep. How is it that you do that? I'm like, my dear, my body always knows that I have to sleep. The moment my sleep is affected, I got to do something. I'm like, you're doing too much. There's something going on. Like I'm someone who sleeps well, who says any issue we have can be solved by sleeping. You sleep, you rest, you wake up fresh, refreshed, your brain, you can think clearly. The moment that's affected, I know I have to see. I'm like, what did you say? Burning the candle.
Oh, then, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm sacrificing. There's something that's making me sacrifice my health. And I have to then pause. But a lot of us, again, is it a one, you don't have the ability to, depending on what stage you are in life. And it really is a privilege for you to be able to pause, right? When you think about the spectrum with different types of folks who are working, right? You might be new in your career and you don't have the ability to do that.
That concept of burning a candle at both ends, I'm like, do you want to shine brighter, shorter? Or do you want to make a long, sustaining impact that has a bigger ripple?
Yes. That's
what I hear you saying too. It's, of course I can do that. But then it's because it becomes all about you or me or whoever's in the center of it. And without that pause.
Yes. Always the longer term goal. So you have to keep your eye on where you're going, but then always constantly looking back at what stage are you? How do you course correct? How do you fix if things are going off? If not, you're not going to, you will never get there, right? Well, what is that saying? They always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you just keep sprinting and sprinting, you're just going to get tired and be like, you know what, I'm not even doing this. And then nobody gets to see that amazing light at the end of the tunnel.
So regardless of where we are in our career, in our life stage, in the place that we live, in our socioeconomic status, in the time and energy that we have, how do you talk to people about making long-term goals? And how far out do your long-term goals go?
I think it depends on the season you are in. It's really, some people can't think beyond, I guess a perfect example. Again, I love examples.
Yes, I love this.
Let's just rewind back to 2019 in my company, right? Like most leaders in 2019, actually February of 2020, could sit and say, we have our 3-year strategic plan, or this is our 3-year goal. This is what we want our company to achieve. And then COVID happened. And literally you have to readjust, right? It is, how is this business going to survive through this week? You understand what I mean, right? because life happens, right? And so this idea of how do you set a long-term goal? How far out do you look? You always want to dream. You always want to have your hopes. You always want to think about what it is you want to achieve, but then you have to come back down to, okay, let's talk about this year. Okay, let's talk about the next 3 months. Okay, let's talk about this current month that we're in. And so also, depending on the season of life you're in, you think about the size of your goal. It could be, like I said earlier, I talked about setting a goal to work out for the next 3 months. That's a 3-month health goal that I want to see. And then when I get there, it doesn't mean I'm not going to work out for the whole year. It doesn't mean my long-term goal isn't to be healthier and fit and whatnot. But I'm such a huge advocate of let's then narrow down what are the steps it's going to take. What are the steps I will take for you to get to that long-term goal in a shorter window? The other reason I like that is that then you have something to celebrate. We need to celebrate. If not, it's going to just feel like this never-ending journey, never-ending path to this goal. So if you don't take a moment to celebrate your small and big wins that fuel us marching towards these goals, it just feels harder. It feels harder. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is how far, it really depends on you, but you can have multiple steps towards your longer term goal. How do you set the goal? It depends on what season you are in life and just thinking about what you really need.
I'm your host, Jess Dewell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now. Come on! Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
I'm going to think about this from a business owner perspective that is keeping the lights on, has been growing, and maybe starting to see that first level of stagnation in revenue. And that causes a couple of questions to show up, right? These questions when our revenue starts to pause are, am I going to be able to maintain this? Sometimes we flip into that protective mode of, I've got to make sure that I'm either growing or staying right here. And then that actually trickles out into a whole bunch of other things. And so that stopping to celebrate is really important, because if we're celebrating along the way, we can figure out how to use what we're celebrating as momentum to our next. Because I can tell you, personally, I used to have revenue goals and it was great. There was a point in business that actually made a lot of sense. We got to get to a point we can pay the bills. We got to keep the lights on. We got to be able to grow and support the people that we've got that are on our teams, that are depending on us, and that the clients that we have and the communities that we serve are all taken care of. That has a commitment going back to the very beginning. But then, so you get to this place, and then what about your own commitment? And where do you want to go? What did you want to do with this? Revenue goals are still important. They're an incredible basis because we have income and expenses and all of these things that we might want to reinvest or not, or do a new project or not. And so that still matters and that still exists. The focus that I have switched into is what does Red Direction actually need to be in 5 years for the companies that we know we can be the most service to? And those are the types of things through our work today. Can we find it? And then we're making our goals for the quarter and the year on it. And then we're saying, okay, cool. So based off of what we're seeing, how is that moving the needle of revenue? So we're taking that thing that everybody does. Okay, so how do we just get more revenue is one way to look at it. But when we shift that lens and look farther out and then make a choice and run an experiment, for lack of a better example, right? Get some real data and then figure out how to go. There's something to be said for that. And that can happen just starting out too. I know I want to be wherever I am in my career path and I want to be a business owner by X. Okay, cool. So what does that mean? What do you have to learn? Who do you have to know? And what does your time energy relationship ratio look like so you can do those things? If it's in 3 months, that's way different than in 3 years. And will you commit to that? So I'm going to come all the way back to full circle on that. So to your point about the steps, and to your point about it depends. It's a commitment, it's a prioritization, and we're going to use this word ruthless.
That is so good. It really is so good. I think, and that's something that I spend, everything that you shared is what I spend a lot of time thinking about, especially for our company. Where do we want to be, like you said, in the next 3 years, but then pulling it back. And then also looking at our current clientele. Where should we be spending more energy going? If we want to become this firm, who are we serving now? Who is helping us get there? Who are our big clients? Who are the clients that help keep the lights open, the doors open? How are we nurturing all the various kinds of relationships? And like you said, then you have to assess, right? Then you have to assess, because in our world, that is in the architecture, engineering, construction world, a lot of the projects you win are relationship-based, right? And nurturing those relationships, but all of that is tied to time. A coffee there, a lunch there, a dinner here. You're taking all these folks out and
Energy.
So you need to make sure you're spending it in the right place to get you to that 3-5 year goal. I really love that you switched perspective. You could set the revenue goal, but okay, how really do you get there?
Yeah. And there are all kinds of ways. Honestly, I have walked into companies and they've said, this is what we've done every time. We just double down and we do this. And then all of a sudden it quit working. It's okay. What quit working about it? Guess what? Their industry changed. Guess what? They forgot about the customer. Guess what? They became obsolete because they weren't having a pulse on their business. And that's actually where I wanted to go next, both personally and professionally, right? Both for an individual and for a company. We need a pulse. That secondary, like that intuition that you get, right? And you talk about running. It happens in running. It happens in meditation. It happens in skill building. It happens in our career. There is this place where it's like, oh, I know this is going to happen. And it starts to happen. That intuitiveness is a skill that comes from just doing the stuff we've been talking about. And so how do you help people recognize and own the power of that intuition, and that's really something that helps with that equation of time and energy?
The best way is to take off the training wheels and create an environment of trust. But that requires, if you're leading a team or leading a company or leading people, and you've surrounded yourself around with a solid team, with whoever your teammates are. I like to think of us as a sports team.
Yeah.
You invest
the right
with lots of time.
Listen, everybody do their job,
right?
Their role and how to expand.
Yes. So you invest a lot of time there, and we have to give people the ability to be able to make decisions on their own. If they fail or if they trip up, how quickly do we recover? Because that's always the fear. If I let go, or if I'm not in it, or if I'm not doing things the same way and I give freedom, something is going to blow up, right? And they're not going to be able to recover.
Letting go of that goal.
Letting go of control.
I like your training wheels example.
Yeah, yes. Well, but when you've poured into people, and I say you pour a lot into B to A players or A to A plus players also, right? Because the folks who you're building with, they also want to have to go there. They're in that position for a reason. You've hired them, they're strong, they know what they're doing, but then you have to let them actually try.
Yes.
And when they try, and again, I want to go back to this whole idea around a misstep or a failure.
Yeah.
There needs to be that trust that if they come and speak to who is leading them or whatever, that they're not going to either be completely shut down, right? Like, you're going to be able to think through the problem and solve it and recover quickly. And people like that who have that power know they learn from their mistakes. And they keep pressing on, right? Take off the training wheels. If you've invested, invest early. Take off the training wheels. create an environment of trust where there's open dialogue and people can come and speak, and you will get to where you're trying to go. It might be bumpy, but you will get there. But it's betterment of all, right? Like us as leaders, your goal is to develop other leaders. Just trying to develop teammates. Everyone should have that power to do that. And so the only way you can do it is going through it.
Yes, it is the truth. And every time it's going to be different. That's the other thing, I think. Sure, and we'll go back to that awareness conversation. Oh, I'm here again. Didn't I already learn this lesson? Why, yes. And guess what? Now you get to practice it.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I'm just like, oh, it's already been in our conversation. So bringing all of the different pieces that we're talking about back together, I think is so important, not only from a listener perspective, but I know I use that to make sure my context is correct. So tell me about where do you feel like your intuition is the greatest within your business? So you've got your tools, you've got your systems, you've got your people. So what are the cues that you have learned to use for you? Because I know it's just for you, and everybody listening, just make sure you remember it will be different for you. But I want to try and get some examples out there so that you have some concept of what you might already have in your next self-assessment and reflection.
So what's a good cue that I could share? For me, intuitively, I lean a lot on how I get clarity around problems, right? Something difficult that I'm trying to solve for. And I have to quiet down a lot and make sure I've stated maybe what is the challenge I'm experiencing now? What are all the potential options that I have? And intuitively, what is giving me the most clarity to get to that next position? When I get that, I share it with what I call it my partners or people who I know. So now I'm talking professionally, but like even personally, right? You have to have a core group of people who are not yes people.
That's right. Somebody to call us on our BS.
This sounds like a good solution, or this sounds like a right pathway. Let's take this path. You already know internally, like that's how you should go. But then there's something about having a trusted, I would call it either, again, board of directors, personal friends, peer mentors, whatever the case is, that you can bounce that solution or pathway forward that then helps you try it, gives you the ability to try it. But personally, for me, intuitively, I always have, it's challenges that challenging. Then I have a moment of clarity. Then there's peace that follows it.
Yes.
I can't explain it.
I got you.
I can't explain it to people sometimes, but I'm just like, no, this is how we should go, because I feel like there's peace for me that follows immediately the answer.
Do you lead with your heart?
I do. I live in both.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's heart first, followed by your brain, because I lead with my heart. And if you were to ask me that same question, and I'm only getting there, right? I've never actually shared this before. I might not have ever even known this before, but it settles in my gut. I'm like, oh, there's a knowing, my knowing. Yet you're feeling peace. And I'm like, oh, that sounds heart related. And I'm like, oh, I make gut decisions. There's a lot of lead by gut first, check self between ears second. And it sits in my gut. There's a knowledge that goes, whoop, and it stops right there. And there it is. So and
you just know it. I love that.
So that's right.
So
and you have to trust it, don't you?
Yes. The other thing, I'm touching my shoulders, but I carry a lot.
Yes.
I carry a lot in my shoulders. So sometimes when this is relaxed, I'm when my actual physical body, okay, this is the way forward, then I know. And it's very tricky in my role. So if you think of my role, is very technical. It's number-based, CFO, right? Sometimes you don't really have the ability to just feel, right? Because you can say, oh, you feel this and the numbers isn't making sense. But I feel like there has to be a balance, right? It's almost very calculated risk-ish, which is why it's a heart and head. You can feel it, but okay, let's go back and see if this actually...
There's more questions to ask. That's how I use it. I'm like, oh, I got this going. It seems to contradict everything I'm seeing in front of me, or what's showing in front of me is actually saying something not contradictory, but just all out different. So what other questions can we ask to find that? Cohesiveness isn't the right one, but the link, because apparently there's a link there, and we got to go with what we know, and we've got to go with what we see, but we can also acknowledge, to the point of the pulse on the business, there's more to find. And that's actually, I think, the biggest thing to take away is just because it says it doesn't mean it's that.
Yes. Always dig deeper. I don't, when I'm assessing like team performances, studio performances, and who is doing well, what can we learn, right, from what's happening? I always, it still takes you back to interpersonal dynamics. How are people relating? And the teams or studios sometimes, or even within your team, even on your project, whatever it is, if it is something that you're working on, the way to know if you're doing things the right way or if there's a lot of angst is just in performance and how you're producing what you're producing. I find that when there's more trust in maybe yourself or in the teams that you're on, it flows through in the numbers. Just see it in the bottom line. You don't have to worry too much on, will you make your numbers? Because all of that interpersonal stuff, the human stuff of business, I don't want to call it soft skills, the human part of running your business is working. And so then the numbers will just work itself out. Doesn't mean you don't look at it. It doesn't mean it can't get better, but the chances are a bit more smoother than people who maybe either don't trust themselves or teams where they have that kind of issue. And then it's constant. You're constantly trying to fix.
Uh-huh. So let's talk about the skills you need to be able to commit to yourself. What would they be?
First of all, let's use the B in my book, Bill Bowlesby, Goal Framework, the B. Be yourself. And it's so simple. The first thing is, do you know who you are before you want to try to commit to that person? Do you like who you are right now? That's the first skill.
Yeah.
Committing to yourself, you have to actually want to confront who this current person is. Because when you're now able to do that and you're like, oh, I like how this person is. Oh, I think this person could move a little bit more with integrity. That's you. When I say this person or whoever, the folks listening, right? I think I can improve in this area. I think I can be honest with where I haven't been doing as great.
There's a Steve Hero's journey that's like that, right? That talks about that. When are we actually able to be ready to do that? And you just jumped right into the deep end. And then there's a story called The Never-Ending Story. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. Okay, The Never-Ending Story. This is a childhood movie of mine. So we're going way back to the 80s, I think, and the 1980s. And this character has to overcome all of these things. And one of the things that they have to overcome is, are they true to themselves? And they have to they have to go through these gates. These gates are statues and they have eyeballs. And he has to make it through without the eyeballs opening and shooting things at him because he's not really true to himself. And only the truth will get you through.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what came up for me as you were saying that. I'm like, all right, got the hero's journey and we got a childhood show of mine. That's how important, that's how imprinted that one is.
Oh, yes. So to me, it's a really important skill that you need to be able to commit. The second thing is accountability and being in community. So
both of them?
yeah, maybe it's both, right? That's like a double, I don't know. So
that's okay. I like it.
Yeah. And let me talk through it. So again, let's go to my example of wanting to improve my health, wellness, all of that. A lot of times we think we can do this on our own. We're operating, and some people can. Some people are able to. But the moment you decide that this is who you want to be, sometimes it helps to move you, motivate you, even through the moments where you really don't want to do it, by being in community. And so with that, my fitness example, I'm part of a fitness group that one of my girlfriends runs. And she's literally run this, maybe now this is going on 8 years. And so the last 8 years, on and off, there has been that support where I wake up and people who are in this group it's a global group. The people in this group have already worked out by the time I wake up. So if I wake up like they're in Nigeria, Nigeria is 5 hours ahead of me. So when I wake up and I want to be this person that wants to show up for themselves, I've already seen someone who has done it in this day. And then that gives me the boost that I need to go downstairs to the gym and work out. And so that's where that community and accountability comes in, right? Because now you're not just accountable to yourself, but you're accountable to the folks where all of us have committed in this group that we're going to do this for ourselves. I find that, so no matter what it is, you want to be a better architect, you want to be a better CFO. I am in a CFO leadership council. I don't act like I know it all. In fact, being in that community, something called the CFO Leadership Council, what it did for me when I joined was made me feel like these big problems and issues and wins maybe that I'm going through at work, there's so many other CFOs going through the same. I remember I attended the conference and I was like, wow, okay, I'm on the right track. And the reason why I joined also is because I am a first-time CFO. Now I'm 7 years in, but I was like, oh, my decisions this is not just intuition. You understand what I mean? It's not just like something that I think, but I'm actually making the right decisions for my organization. And those two things, I think, are two ways. If I were to think about many, but those two things, I think, is one, being aware, two, being in community. That can help you really stay committed to all the great things that you want to see done. Oh, what makes it bold? Wow. So boldness to me use boldness to me in terms of my career journey and what made the decisions bold. I go back to this 21-year-old girl who, during the 2008 financial crisis, walked to the CFO's office to ask for more tasks and please invest in me. And I'm like, girl, you are crazy. And just sat there like most people. Louis there, it's the crisis. Put your head down and do your work. But that was a very bold move. Boldness, that spirit of boldness, or what makes all these commitments bold to yourself is one, is it going to help you elevate, move to another level in your life, in your path, regardless of you knowing what the outcome is? I didn't know what that outcome would be, but I made a statement, I uttered something to myself, and I committed to it. That is a bold, radical act in itself, regardless of what the outcome is. I took a double promotion from senior project accountant to controller. Regardless of not knowing how things would happen, I was like, I'm going to better myself. That's bold, right? So for me, what makes it bold for anyone, any decision that you make to commit to anything in your life is that trust that you're building in yourself. It's that you don't know what's going to happen, but you know that this is the next step that you need to take. And you're actually going to take it. Like, you're actually going to do that action. I say a lot of people talk, right? We talk, but where's the action? Where's the step? Take that step, and it's a bold move right there. You take one step towards what you're thinking in your head, like the thought, the dream, whatever it is, and you actually do it. That's what makes it bold for me. That's my own definition of boldness.
This is just one program I've created in the pursuit of identifying the right work to be done and then doing as much of that work as possible, because that's where success happens. We're talking about building businesses that last. The Bold Business Podcast equips leaders, business owners, and management teams with the strategic mindsets and the practical tools to navigate the ever-evolving business landscape. Before you go, remember to visit reddirection.com for solutions, articles, and more programs like this one, created to help you navigate the challenges that you're facing in your business today. Don't forget to follow us on our social media channels to keep up with all the latest insights. It is bold to pursue building a business that lasts. Until next time.
Wow! Jess hosts the Bold Business Podcast to provide insights for building a resilient, profitable business by deeply understanding your growth strategy, ensuring market relevance and your company's future. It is bold to deeply understand your growth strategy with your host, Jess Dewell. Get more information about how to drive solutions and reset your growth mindset at reddirection.com. Thank you for joining us, and special thanks to our post-production team at The Scott Treatment.